There's a profound difference between simply having sex and creating an experience of real, lasting intimacy. For many women, especially those who have reached a stage in life where the emotional and psychological aspects of connection matter deeply, that difference comes down to communication during the act itself, not the deep conversations before or after, not the pillow talk or romantic gestures, but the words spoken in the exact moment. When bodies meet, breath shortens and vulnerability is at its highest. For generations, women have been taught that talking during sex is inappropriate, that good women remain quiet, that moaning, guiding, or vocalizing desire makes you look needy, vulgar, or worse, too much. As a result, so many of us learn to censor ourselves in the most intimate moments, to perform rather than to fully experience, to be silent observers of our own pleasure instead of active participants. But here's the truth. Words, the right words, expressed in the right moment, can completely transform not only a single intimate encounter, but the emotional landscape of a relationship. After years of experience working with couples in therapy, especially women in their 40s, 50s and beyond, I've learned something powerful. The difference between couples who keep the spark alive and those who watch the fire slowly die out isn't age, attractiveness, or how long they've been together. It's how they communicate during intimacy. We all know the stories. The relationships that began with passion, electric touches, breathless anticipation, spontaneous desire, and yet over time, those sparks began to fade. Intimacy became predictable. Sex turned into a routine. Same time, same moves, same ending. This is normal, but it's not inevitable. The fire can be rekindled, not with tricks or performances, but with truth, with your authentic voice. And before we go deeper, let me say this loud and clear. This is not about manipulation. This is not about saying things to inflate egos or trap a man. What I'll share with you is rooted in emotional honesty, mutual respect, and deep personal liberation. Consent, comfort, and trust are non-negotiable. If something doesn't feel right to you, don't say it. But if something stirs inside you, if you want to speak, if you're curious to connect more deeply, this is your invitation. Let's talk about where many intimacy issues actually stem from. Contrary to what most people assume, they're rarely due to lack of skill, experience, or age-related changes. They come from something more subtle and more dangerous: fear. Fear of expressing what we really feel. Fear of seeming too intense, too emotional. Fear of judgment, rejection, comparison. Fear that once we're seen in our full, raw expression, we won't be loved anymore. And this fear runs especially deep in women of our generation. Many of us were raised under an unspoken rule. Good women don't talk about sex, let alone during it. We were taught to be polite, modest, restrained, to take care of everyone else's needs first and suppress our own. So when it comes to intimacy, silence often feels safer than speaking our truth. But here's the reality I've come to know. With certainty, your partner wants to hear you. He wants to know that what he's doing touches you, affects you, arouses you. Men are deeply responsive to verbal and visual feedback. It's not about ego stroking, it's about connection. When you express how something feels, what you like, or what you want more of, you're not just guiding him, you're inviting him into your experience. And when he feels invited, not judged or instructed, he'll lean in closer. But more than that, something profound happens inside you when you begin to speak during intimacy. When you give yourself permission to say out loud what you're feeling, something changes. You become more present. Your brain processes the experience more intensely. You're not just going through the motions, you're living the moment, emotionally and physically. It's a powerful loop. The more you express, the more pleasure you feel. The more pleasure you feel, the more natural it becomes to express. There's also a psychological liberation in using your voice, especially for women who've spent decades controlling reactions, being careful not to offend, walking emotional tightropes. The bedroom can become a sanctuary where you're free. Free to be loud, free to feel, free to guide, free to ask, free to surrender. And this freedom doesn't just transform the act itself, it has lasting effects on your self-esteem. You stop feeling like a passive recipient of desire and start owning your own erotic power. You start telling yourself, on the deepest level, that you deserve pleasure, that your body isn't something to hide or tame, it's something to celebrate. But of course, none of this can begin without preparation. You can't go from silence to soulful expression overnight. You have to prepare the ground. Gently, lovingly, with curiosity. The first step is creating openness outside the bedroom. And no, it doesn't have to be a formal sit-down talk about sex moment. It can be a light question during a car ride or coffee. Do you like when I talk during intimacy? What turns you on most? Words, touch, sounds. Do you ever wish I guided you more? These questions aren't confrontational. They're door openers. They show your partner you're thinking about your shared pleasure, that you care enough to be brave, and they invite him to be brave too. Because guess what? He might be scared too. Afraid of doing the wrong thing, afraid of not being enough, afraid to ask you what you want in case you say something he doesn't know how to give. You're not alone in vulnerability, and when both people let their guards down, that's where the real magic begins. Next comes a step that might surprise you. Text messages. Yes, even now. Especially now. Because texting offers a low-pressure way to explore language, express curiosity, and build anticipation. And no, I'm not talking about explicit photos or phrases that make you feel exposed. I'm talking about authentic expressions of desire and connection. For example, I can't stop thinking about how you touched me last night. Tonight, I want you to kiss me like you did on our first trip. I keep imagining the way you smell when you're close. These texts do two things. They prime the emotional atmosphere for intimacy, and they let you practice. You'll discover which words feel natural to you, which expressions make you feel connected. You'll also learn how he reacts, and that gives you more information for what to say later. And this is where we'll pause for now. In the next part, we'll dive into the 3 transformational phrases you can use during intimacy and exactly why they work. But for now, I invite you to reflect on this. Are you ready to let go of the silence you were taught to keep? Are you willing to try speaking one phrase, even one breath, that expresses the truth of your desire? Because when you do, your intimacy can become not just deeper, but unforgettable. Now that we've opened the door to expressing yourself during intimacy, it's time to walk through it, slowly, confidently, and in your own way. You don't need to say everything all at once. You don't need to become someone you're not. What you do need is a starting point, a way to begin finding and trusting your voice. That's where these 3 transformational phrases come in. Each of these phrases is more than just words. They speak directly to fundamental emotional needs, not just your partner's, but your own. They're grounded in psychology, not performance. They work not because they're clever or sexy, but because they're real. Let's break them down. Phrase 1, you feel delicious. Yes, it might sound a little unusual if you're not used to speaking this way. It might even feel awkward the first time it leaves your lips. But trust me, this one is powerful. Why? Because it speaks directly to the senses. When you say you feel delicious, you're not just saying you enjoy what's happening. You're describing the physical experience in a deeply visceral way. You're anchoring pleasure in the present moment, using sensory language that evokes texture, temperature, contact, and emotional heat. You're saying, your body brings me pleasure, just as it is. This is incredibly validating, especially for men who often carry silent insecurities about their bodies, their performance, or their ability to give pleasure. When they hear this phrase, they don't just hear praise, they hear affirmation. You're telling them, I want you. You're doing this right. Being close to you feels amazing. But perhaps even more importantly, you feel it. Saying those words makes you more aware of your own body, your own sensations, and the moment you're in. It pulls you out of your head and into your skin. And that's where real intimacy happens. When you're present, not analyzing. Now, timing matters. Don't rush this phrase. Let it arise naturally. When you're genuinely overwhelmed with how good their touch feels. If you say it too early, especially if your partner tends to respond strongly to praise, it might unintentionally accelerate their arousal before you're ready. Save it for when your own desire is peaking, when your body is humming with sensation, and you're ready to deepen the connection. Combine it with touch, your hands running across their back, your mouth close to their ear. Say it softly or with a breathless laugh, depending on your mood. And don't be afraid to personalize it. You feel so warm against me. Your skin is like velvet right now. I love the way your body fits mine. What matters most is authenticity. If delicious doesn't feel natural to you, find the word that does. What counts is that it comes from you and that you mean it. Phrase 2, don't stop. At first glance, this might seem like a simple direction, but don't let its simplicity fool you. This phrase holds enormous power, both for you and your partner. When you say don't stop, you're doing two essential things. 1, you're giving real-time feedback. You're guiding your partner toward what works for you. 2, you're taking ownership of your pleasure. You're acknowledging what you want and asking for it. So many women have been taught to be passive during intimacy, to be recipients rather than participants. But this phrase flips that script entirely. You're not just receiving pleasure, you're shaping it. And that shift can completely change how you experience intimacy. For your partner, this is gold. It eliminates guesswork. It validates their actions. It builds confidence. It says, you're doing something right. Keep going. And for you, it's a declaration. You're saying, my pleasure matters. I know what feels good and I want more. This phrase also helps regulate pacing. It signals when something feels just right and should be sustained. And that kind of feedback is crucial, especially in long-term relationships where routine can dull responsiveness. As with the first phrase, timing is key. Use don't stop when you're really enjoying what's happening, whether it's a specific touch, rhythm, movement, or emotional intensity. When you say it with genuine desire in your voice, it becomes a kind of spell, amplifying the very sensation you want to sustain. You can whisper it, you can moan it, you can even say it with a little urgency. All that matters is that it's real. And again, if this phrase doesn't feel right, modify it. Right there. Just like that. That's perfect. Don't change it. This is how you build a vocabulary of desire. Not by memorizing scripts, but by discovering what rings true for you. Phrase 3. You drive me wild. This one is a favorite. And not just because it sounds sexy. It works because it speaks to emotional impact. It's not about the act itself. It's about what your partner does to you. It's personal. It's intimate. It's admiring. When you say you drive me wild, you're telling your partner that they affect you on a deep, powerful level. Not just physically, but emotionally. You're saying, you have access to my wild side. You stir something deep in me. I lose control with you, and I love it. For many men, this is an incredibly affirming message. It's not just about being good in bed. It's about being the one who can bring that side out of you. It's about being uniquely connected to you in a way no one else is. This goes straight to the heart of emotional intimacy. But this phrase also does something for you. It gives you permission to own your passion, your wildness, your erotic freedom. Many women have spent decades hiding that part of themselves. Saying this phrase is a way of finally letting it out. You can adapt it based on your tone and personality. You make me crazy. I can't get enough of you. You undo me. You bring out the animal in me. Say it when you mean it. Say it when you're trembling, breathless, overwhelmed. Say it when you're lost in the moment and feel him there with you. Emotionally and physically. The magic of this phrase lies in its surrender. And surrender requires trust. And that trust is built over time. With each honest word, each real reaction, each moment you choose authenticity over performance. These 3 phrases, you feel delicious, don't stop, and you drive me wild, these are simple, but they hold transformative power when used with intention and truth. They validate, they connect, they admire, they turn intimacy into a shared creation, rather than something that happens to you. But it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. Your tone, your eyes, your breath, your hands, all of it matters. Emotional truth can't be faked. You don't need to sound like someone else. You just need to sound like a woman who means what she says. And when you do, your partner will feel it, not just hear it. That's when intimacy deepens. That's when sex becomes something you don't forget. So now that you understand the power of communication during intimacy, the magic of a well-timed phrase, the freedom of vocalizing your pleasure, it's time to expand that into a bigger conversation. Because for most couples, especially those in long-term relationships. What happens in the bedroom is deeply shaped by what happens outside of it. Many of us make the mistake of treating sex as a separate category, something isolated from the rest of the relationship. We reserve intimacy for the night, the bed, the closed door. But real connection isn't compartmentalized. It's continuous. It builds during the day, through words, through attention, through moments of emotional closeness. This is why open communication outside the bedroom is so essential to deepening connection inside it. And no, this doesn't mean having long, formal talks about sex every week. It means creating a space in your relationship where nothing is off limits, where desire, curiosity, fantasies, preferences, and boundaries can be discussed as naturally as you talk about dinner or weekend plans. But let's be real. If you've been together for many years and have never talked openly about sex, this can feel intimidating. You might wonder, how do I even bring it up? Or, what if he thinks I'm unhappy with him? Here's the truth. Talking about sex doesn't mean there's a problem. It means you care. It means you value your intimacy enough to nurture it. Think of it like tending a fire, not because it's dying, but because you want it to burn brighter. So how do you start? Begin with curiosity, not criticism. You're not making a complaint. You're extending an invitation. Ask questions that make space for him to share too. Is there anything you've always wanted to try but haven't mentioned? What do you think has changed in our intimacy over the years? Are there things I do that turn you on more than others? These questions are gentle, open-ended, and most importantly, they come from love. They don't accuse or assume. They invite exploration. And don't forget, this is also your moment to share your preferences. Not just what you want more of, but what makes you feel most confident and relaxed. What helps you get in the mood? What makes you feel deeply connected? You're allowed to ask for what you need. You're allowed to say no to what doesn't feel good. You're allowed to design an intimate life that reflects who you are now, not who you were 10 or 20 years ago, because we all evolve. The things that worked when you were 30 may not suit your body or your emotional needs now, and that's not a problem. It's an opportunity to reconnect with your body in a new way, one that honors your maturity, your wisdom, your self-awareness. And if this conversation still feels hard to start face-to-face, guess what? You can begin with text. That's right. Texting isn't just for flirting. It can be a gentle, pressure-free way to introduce these topics. Here's how. Start with something playful but emotionally anchored. I was thinking today about how we've grown together over the years, and how we could bring that depth into our intimacy too. I read something interesting about women feeling more connected when they talk during intimacy. I'd love to try that sometime. Do you ever wish we were more expressive during sex? I think I'm ready to experiment a little. These are soft, safe invitations. They don't demand anything. They simply open the door. If your partner is receptive, that's your sign to take a step further. If he's hesitant or confused, don't take it personally. Sometimes it takes a little while for these ideas to land, especially for men who haven't been given the space to talk about emotional and sexual desires without feeling exposed. That's something many women overlook. Men have fears too. Yes, they may seem confident, eager, always ready, but many carry their own shame, insecurities, and unspoken fears. Some worry they're not good enough. Others fear they're being compared to past partners. Some have never had a woman say out loud what she wants, and that absence can make a man retreat into performance instead of connection. This is where your emotional leadership becomes so powerful. When you lead with vulnerability, your partner often follows. When you speak honestly, he sees that it's safe to do the same. When you show that you can talk about pleasure without shame, you give him permission to let go of his own. It becomes a shared space, not just for pleasure, but for healing. Let me give you an example. A woman in her 50s, recently remarried, told me that after decades of silence in her first marriage, she decided her second relationship would be different. She started small, a sigh here, a whispered yes there. Then she added soft phrases like, "I love that," or "keep going." One night she finally said, "You drive me wild." She told me he stopped. He looked into my eyes like he had never seen me before. And then he kissed me in a way that felt like he finally felt me. Why did that happen? Because she was present, because her words were real, and because she created an emotional opening that he didn't even know he needed. That's the impact of expressive, vulnerable communication. It deepens not just sex, but the entire relationship. And here's something even more beautiful. Once this door is open, you can start to share more. Not just what you like, but your fantasies, your curiosities, even your edges. You might be surprised by how much your partner wants to know these things. How much he's wanted to ask, but didn't know how. How much he wants to turn you on. Not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. It's in these shared moments. Lying in bed after, walking hand in hand on a quiet morning, texting late at night, that your relationship transforms. It stops being about obligation, or habit, or routine. It becomes alive again, creative, playful, deep. And this kind of communication is the foundation for sexual reinvention. Because let's be honest, as women in midlife and beyond, many of us have been through transitions, divorce, menopause, the end of child-rearing, new relationships. These changes are more than life events. They're invitations to reclaim and redefine our sexuality. You're not the same woman you were in your 20s, and that's a gift. Now you know what you want. Now you understand your body. Now you're done performing or pretending. This stage of life can be the most erotic and empowered of all if you choose to claim it. And claiming it starts with your voice. Now that the door's open, now that you've found your voice and begun to use it, the next step is to expand your vocabulary of intimacy beyond those initial 3 phrases. You feel delicious. Don't stop. You drive me wild. These are beautiful beginnings. But the real magic begins when you realize you can say anything. Anything that is true. Anything that is felt. Anything that arises from your body and your heart in the moment. This is about creating your own personal language of intimacy. A language that reflects you, your personality, your needs, your desires. A language that evolves over time, deepens with trust, and strengthens the bond between you and your partner. Let's begin by naming a crucial truth. You do not need to be someone else to speak this way. You don't need to sound like a woman in a movie. You don't need to be poetic or perfect. You just need to be honest. Honesty is the root of erotic power. When a phrase comes from your actual experience, when it matches what's happening inside your body, it doesn't matter how simple or unpolished it is. It carries real energy. Your partner feels it. You feel it. And that authenticity is what transforms good sex into something unforgettable. Here are a few examples of simple, heartfelt expressions that go beyond our initial phrases. I love the way you touch me like that. That's exactly what I needed. I feel so connected to you right now. You make me feel safe. And that turns me on. It's so good when you slow down like that. I love it when you look at me like this. These are not scripts. They are invitations to tune in and express what's true for you. Sometimes, what you say won't be sexy in the traditional sense. And that's okay. It might be raw, emotional, tender. That's real intimacy. That's the space where bodies and souls meet. And here's what's important. This new kind of communication doesn't have to stay in the bedroom. It can, and should, become part of your whole relationship. Use your voice to express affection throughout the day. Use it to play, to flirt, to laugh, to reminisce. Let sensuality become part of the air between you. Not something you turn on like a light switch, but something that's already there, softly glowing beneath the surface. Now, for many women, this also opens the door to something they've long desired, but rarely dared to explore. Fantasies. Let's talk about them. Fantasies are not dirty. They are not shameful. They are not a threat to your relationship. In fact, when shared in a loving, respectful space, they can become a source of incredible connection and creativity. You don't need to act out every fantasy. You don't need to shock or impress. You just need to feel safe enough to say, "This turns me on." Or, "I've always wondered what it would feel like if..." That simple act of revealing a desire can build emotional closeness and ignite physical passion in powerful ways. You might begin by exploring fantasies in conversation, during a quiet evening or even via text. Ask questions that open the door for both of you. Have you ever had a fantasy you've never told anyone? What's something you've thought about trying but haven't? Is there a moment from our past that really turned you on that we could recreate? These questions are not about performance. They're about sharing, about saying, there are still parts of me to discover. And I want to share them with you. Now let's shift slightly, because while expressing desires is crucial, so is setting boundaries. And this too is part of your voice. Saying no to something that doesn't feel good is just as intimate, just as important as saying yes. It shows you trust your partner enough to be honest. It shows you honor your own body and emotional safety. You might say, I'm not comfortable with that. Can we try something else instead? I don't think I'm ready for that right now, but I love that you shared it with me. I want to stay connected to you, so I need to feel completely safe. Can we slow down? When you communicate this way, with respect for yourself and your partner, boundaries don't become limitations. They become part of your freedom, because the safest relationships are where both people feel like they can say yes and no, and be loved either way. This brings us to something vital. Every couple is different. Some people are naturally more expressive, others are reserved. Some love words, others respond more to sounds, to touch, to energy. There's no right way to be. What matters is that you are honest and that you listen. If your partner doesn't respond to verbal expression the way you expect, don't shut down. Get curious. Ask what works for them. Find the bridge between your styles. And remember, just because they're quiet doesn't mean they're not feeling deeply. Still waters run deep. That's why ongoing communication is key, not just during but after intimacy. Aftercare, as it's sometimes called, is a beautiful way to reinforce connection. It's the cuddling, the whispering, the checking in. What did you love most about tonight? Was there anything that felt especially good? Or not great? I loved when you did acts that made me feel so close to you. These are simple, but they do something profound. They tell your partner that sex with you is not just about the act, it's about the relationship. And when a relationship becomes a place where both people feel safe, expressive, and truly seen, that's when the deepest kind of passion can flourish. Not just for a few months, not just when everything is new, but for years, even decades, because at the heart of all of this, at the heart of intimacy, passion, connection, is the willingness to be vulnerable. It takes courage to say what you want. It takes strength to reveal what turns you on. It takes maturity to listen when your partner shares something raw. And it takes love, deep, real, grounded love, to create a relationship where intimacy evolves rather than fades. So wherever you are in your journey, whether you're rediscovering yourself after divorce, reigniting connection in a long marriage, or starting something brand new, know this: your voice is your power. Use it to claim your desire. Use it to deepen connection. Use it to heal old patterns. Use it to experience the kind of intimacy you've always wanted and absolutely deserve. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Start with one word, one phrase, one look. Let it be awkward. Let it be thrilling. Let it be real. Because the most beautiful, transformative, unforgettable sex doesn't come from knowing what to do. It comes from knowing who you are and daring to share her. So speak, and let your voice set you free.